when we wake up each morning and our eyes open up, we're innately fear-based and we are on autopilot most of the day. And so the effect of that is we start thinking about our problems. That generates negative feelings. Those negative feelings generate more negative thoughts. And you get in this continual negative loop, and you have nothing pulling you forward to your desired life, and therefore you recreate your past. And the solution, though, and I'll go into this a little deeper, but the overview of the solution is you create immense clarity about your life, and you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And when you do that, then the right actions start happening automatically, and you have this powerful force pulling you forward to your desired life.
Craft Your Life is a radio show for the tenacious, the bold, and those who refuse to settle for mediocrity. We bring together visionaries, game changers, and relentless go-getters who are crafting their lives, businesses, and relations in pursuit of excellence. If you are ready to shatter limits, embrace the amazing, and live life on your own terms, this show is for you. Each episode delivers actionable insights, inspiring stories, and unfiltered conversations that will ignite your drive to win a life worth dying for. Tune in and get ready to live viciously. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Craft Your Life radio show. We have an amazing show here lined out for you today. Most entrepreneurs are running at 20% of their potential, maybe. They're grinding, juggling, and wondering why the needle isn't moving. But what if the real problem is invisible? What if it's not you, but how you think? Today's guest did something most never dare to do. At 50 years old, frustrated with six-figure stagnation, John Mitchell went all in on one idea: apply the most powerful book ever written on success, Think and Grow Rich. Word for word. The result? Over 9 years, he scaled from a solo operator to a $25 million business, netting over $5 million a year, and discovered the missing piece most high performers never see. He's an author, entrepreneur. He works with the chancellor at the University of Texas as a mindset coach. For all the coaches there, if I have that correct, John. If you ever felt the pull of not more busy work, but more freedom, more control, more purpose, listen close, because this isn't just strategy. This is the operating system behind the exceptional life. Please help me welcome to the show, John Mitchell. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you.
Matt, thank you. I so appreciate this. I think in talking to you today, I think a lot of the people are going to find this interesting. But some of them,
too.
The ones that are really driven, I think they'll find it life-changing.
Tell me, John, I mean, you do this work, and I want to hear a little bit of the story of like where it came from, but to set an anchor, how many people listening would really do this work? From your experience, how many people like see the tools, pick them up, and implement?
2%.
2%. Hopefully we got a lot of 2%ers out there.
I have a feeling you probably do. Now, I used to think it was for everybody. Everybody wants to be more successful, right?
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I was wrong. And when we get into it, I'll tell the story of meeting Darren Hardy and how he made me realize it's for the 2%, not for everybody.
Yeah. I've heard your story a couple of times. For the listeners, let's lay out some context. So you were 50 or in your 50s. There was business, there was finance, there was relationship mechanics that you weren't like, it just wasn't there for you. And that spurred you into a deep dive into Napoleon Hill's work.
Right. You want me to go into a little deeper?
A little bit. Yeah, I do.
Well, like you said, at 50, I wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I had two goals in my life: to make enough money so I didn't have to work, and to find the woman in my dreams. And so I'm falling short on both of them. And so on the money, I always did, pretty well as an entrepreneur, made a couple $100,000 a year. But when I hit 50, as materialistic as this sounds, I realized I had to start netting over $1 million a year if I ever wanted to have the exceptional life I dreamed of.
Mhm.
And on the girl at 50, I'd never been married. And so um, my life just wasn't where I wanted it to be. And about 3 months after I turned 50, a pearl of wisdom comes to me. Find the top book of the world on success. And as you mentioned, apply it literally word for word in my life. And so I did a little research, discover something that sort of blew me away at the time, that there's one book that's been read by 150 million people, and it's the top book in the world on success by a factor of 10, and that book is Think and Grow Rich. And, the power of that, realizing that 150 million people had read that book, told me that there was something special about this book. I
Hmm.
mean, the law of large numbers tells you something, tells you there's something special here. And so I buy the book and read the book, and then I discovered the problem, Matt. As you well know, it says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret.
Uh-huh.
So I'm bummed out, and I mope around for about 3 weeks, and then finally one day just get up and go, "Come on, John, man up and figure out the damn secret." And so I immersed myself in the book over 2 or 3 months and read it probably 20 times, and was blessed to figure out the full secret, and I developed a 12-minute-a-day technique to apply it. And so I'm applying it to, a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage field, and suddenly my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where, like, about 4 years later, I was making 25 times the 200 to 300 grand I'd been making the prior 20 years. And but man, what was so cool about it was I could feel why it was happening. I was just playing the game of life at a higher level. I could do things I couldn't do before. Uh, I had a level of control over myself I'd never had before, and I just became fascinated by the fact that you could take 2 key scientific principles and apply them to your life, and so materially impact your success. And so about 10 years ago, I sell my company. I'm gonna share this with the world. And a month or 2 later, I meet the former chancellor and president at the University of Texas here in Austin, and he says, "Well, you gotta teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together?" And then that led to him introduce me to the athletic director, who said, "Hey, I wanna learn this 12-minute-a-day technique." And, that led to becoming the mental coach for the 18 head coaches. And
Mhm.
so today I teach my methodology largely to athletes, not exclusively to athletes, but a lot of my students are athletes. And I license my methodology to coaches because that's the way to leverage me. So
Mhm.
that's an overview of the story.
Yeah. So 12 minutes a day, income starts doubling, opens up opportunities, and you just feel more centered, grounded you.
Right, right. And I'll tell you, here's something to think about. I think as you heard that story, what's the lesson? Well, I think the lesson is there's immense power in understanding how you create success in your life. And here's what I would say to your audience. Just step back and think, how do you create success in your life? And Matt, when I'm in person with someone, typically they'll stumble around with that. They'll come up with something. I'll recap it to 'em back to them. And then the more pertinent question is, "So how's that working for you?" Well, usually not that good, at least not to the level they want. And so, um, what I see is that most people are just winging life. They don't really have a way of doing life. And the effect of that is they recreate their past. And if you dig in just a little bit deeper to that, we all have two fundamental problems we have to overcome. The first one is that we are innately wired for survival, which causes 75% of our thoughts to be fear-based. And the second problem is that 95% of our daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And so what happens is, and this is true of everybody, when we wake up each morning and our eyes open up, we're innately fear-based and we are on autopilot most of the day. And so the effect of that is we start thinking about our problems. That generates negative feelings. Those negative feelings generate more negative thoughts. And you get in this continual negative loop, and you have nothing pulling you forward to your desired life, and therefore you recreate your past. And the solution, though, and I'll go into this a little deeper, but the overview of the solution is you create immense clarity about your life, and you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And when you do that, then the right actions start happening automatically, and you have this powerful force pulling you forward to your desired life.
It's amazing. I can attest to that just as a subscriber and a practicer of this methodology. There's a couple of things in there that um, one I want to highlight, and then I want to ask you a question just to get your perspective because I think it'll be unique. But you mentioned 95% of our thoughts are unconscious,
Thoughts and actions.
thoughts and actions. 95%. That's not, I mean, that is just incredibly significant. And I remember when I first heard you state that, and for a minute I was like, "Oh, come on! I've got control. Like I'm on the horse. I got the reins in my hand. I'm driving." And then I did some research. I heard it again. I did some more research. I was like, "Wow!" So I just want to anchor that in for the readers. I mean, 95% of thoughts and actions are unconscious. Pretty
I'm so
wild.
glad that you brought that up because truly that one fact changed my life. And 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 I'll get into the story a little deeper in a minute, but the reason that's so significant is oftentimes when I'm on a podcast, I will say that, and I'll even say it was the most significant thing I ever learned in my life. And the host sometimes, oftentimes, will will go, "Okay, I believe that. I believe that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious." And I'll go, "Well, what are you doing about it?" "Well, they're not doing anything about it." I'm like, "Whoa, what are you not getting here? Come on, let's connect the dots. If your daily actions determine your success and 95% of them are unconscious, doesn't that change your life?" And again, I think that we live in this world where people are throwing around facts, and because this is so foundational, what I'm talking about, that when I teach it to people, I make them go into Google and dial in what percentage of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, and you'll see in big dark letters 95%, and they'll give you the research behind it, and it's an indisputable fact. But I see before someone will really dig into my stuff, prove it to yourself like you did, exactly like you did.
I had to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, so what's interesting about that is the 95%, you know, thoughts and actions being unconscious. I mean, that's not a secret. Um, wh- why do you think Napoleon Hill left out the secret? Like he has it in there, and I can see it now reading it, and I'm like, okay, there's a little hook here and there to kind of get the reader leaning into his story a bit. But why do you think he left it out?
Um, I think that it was the time when the book was written back in the
Hmm.
1930s, and
Yeah.
it was a completely different time, and he wanted people to think deeply about it, and of course, now in this flip through culture we live in, we don't think, deeply through it, and I'll tell you, uh, uh, we met through Chaz, right?
Uh-huh. That's right.
Well, Chaz, he enlightened me, not too long ago. He's told me, he says, I talk to people and I go, "So you've read Think and Grow Rich?" And they go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, so have you created the thing that he talks about in chapter 4?" And they're like, "Well, what thing are you talking about?" And Jazz is like, "Well, you obviously hadn't really read the book then." And that will be 90% of people have not created the thing. Well, the thing essentially is feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. And and so many people like you had this experience when you read it and you knew what the secret was, it jumps out at you all over the place. But when you read it not knowing what the secret is, you're puzzled by it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. You've mentioned it a few times, but how would you define that secret today?
Well, let me give you the backstory on figuring it out, and
Yeah, I love
and
it.
um,
Love
and
it.
I think this will be illuminative for your audience. So again, I'm 50 years old, and I'm I'm feeling the scarcity of time, but there's a little more going on with me than just that. I'm losing my mom to prostate cancer at that time,
Mm.
and so every day after work, I'd go see her, and she's in the hospital for like 8 weeks, and, so every day I'd go see her and love on her and hold her hand and spend a couple of hours with her, and Matt, of course, was everything I could do to keep from breaking down in front of her, and so I'd spend a couple of hours, and I'd leave, and then I'd go in the the cold, dark, hospital parking lot and just cry my eyes out. I mean, totally break down in my car, and I couldn't even drive home for, like, 45 minutes. It was so excruciating, and I'd never experienced this level of emotional upheaval before, and, of course, I'm feeling the loss of my mom, the impending loss of my mom, but I knew there was something much deeper even than that, and I saw ultimately that I felt like I was letting my mom down with my life because my mom and dad gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit high school in Dallas, and when they didn't have the money, and sent me to college and paid for everything, and so there I am at 50 as she's leaving this world, and all I've got to show for all the advantages I was given was an average life,
Hmm.
and I hated the average life because I just knew I was capable of so much more. And so, it was so frustrating. And meanwhile, during this time, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. And what I didn't realize at the time, but I now realize it, that feeling of letting my mom down was like rocket fuel and causing me to go deeper into figuring out the secret of thinking grow rich than any other person on the planet. And I believe that's why I was able to figure it out when other people couldn't. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
It does. What a gift.
And so to the point of, so what's the secret? Well, along this time, it really came to me one pivotal night that really changed my life forever. And like every other night, I'd go see my mom and go in the hospital parking lot and cry my eyes out for 45 minutes. But Matt, this particular night, it just felt different. It was snowing, and it doesn't snow very often in Dallas. I know snow is a part of your life, but It doesn't snow very often in Dallas, and so as I'm driving home, I see the big snowflakes hit my windshield, and again, it just felt different. And so I get home and I plot myself in my comfy chair and I pick up Think and Grow Rich, and um, again, this is about the 20th time I've read it, but this particular night I read that your daily actions determine your success in each area of your life. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determine your success in each area of your life. Well, okay, I'm like, wow, I'd never thought about success so simply, but I certainly agree with that. And then I read that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. I'm like, huh. Well, by now I'm ready to go to bed, and so I put the book down and brush my teeth and wash my face and put my little head on the pillow. And man, I can't stop thinking about 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And, you know, then it hits me. I don't control my daily actions. Yet those daily actions are the very thing that determines my success in life. And that was like getting hit with lightning. And so I sit up in my bed and I'm like, "Wow." Uh, and I'm looking out in the backyard, I see the glistening snowflakes falling. It's truly feels like a surreal moment, and so then I go, "Well, wait a minute. So what controls my daily actions?" Well, if 95% of them are unconscious, it's my subconscious mind, my autopilot, and interestingly, the subconscious mind is only influenced by repetition. And then I realized all this time, all I've been controlling is my intentions, not my actions, just controlling my intentions. And that's when it really all clicked. And I realized that I wasn't underperforming because I lacked in intelligence or drive. I was underperforming because really a false belief I had about success, that false belief was that I controlled my daily actions. And so as I started realizing this, I'm like, wow, now I'm seeing the truth about how success works really for the first time ever. And my autopilot is controlling my daily actions. And the other thing I factored in that I learned was that autopilot is also fear-based and reactive. And so that night, I really made the decision, I'm, by God, taking control of my autopilot and reprogramming it for success rather than letting it be fear-based and reactive. And that epiphany really changed my life. And then a few minutes later, as I'm grasping all this, by the grace of God, the full secret of Think and Grow Rich comes to me. And that full secret is what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And let me say that again, what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that means is you create immense clarity about your life, exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And once you create that clarity, then you put it on a template that I created many years ago. And the purpose of the template is really two things: to make it concise enough so that it only takes 12 minutes a day to read, and it also allows us to apply the science of the human mind that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. And so then you start reading it each morning, and that's the repetition that the subconscious mind requires in order to rewire your autopilot. And once you do that, then 3 things happen. The first thing you experience is immense, control over your life. Well, of course you're gonna feel control. You're feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. Of course you're gonna feel control. Then the second thing you experience is you feel confidence from that sense of control. And you also feel lighter and less stressed because the mind thrives on order and you're creating immense order in your mind. And then the third thing you experience is after 21 days, the science kicks in and the magic happens and the right actions start happening automatically without thinking. And you just begin playing the game of life at a higher level and it's impacting your career, your health, and your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I mean, it's the it's like the blue pill, pill decision, like knowing about it and how simple it can be to engage in the science and in the template and do the work. Um, it's literally that level of choice.
Right, right,
Do you want to go down this road and transform, or do you want to stay winging it?
right. Well, and I'll tell you, there and I alluded to it, sort of a minute ago that it's impacting your career, it's impacting your marriage, it impacts your health. Let me explain why it impacts your career. Do you think that's the thing most people are concerned about?
I mean, I would imagine there's a mix, but I mean, that's a high level of folks. I mean, we're always thinking about the career and finances and
Right, right.
yeah.
Um, well, and I would, of course, back in the day, when I was 50, that was where I was at. As I've evolved, I see that the career is not the most important thing, but, but depending on your stage in life, it can be. And what I but, I started out my life as a CPA, so I was very analytical, and I look back, when I was in my mid-50s, and I was blessed to be making $5 million a year after 20 years of low six figures a year, and, first of all, I felt so totally blessed. I mean, I was just felt so blessed about it, but I was analytical about why is this happening? Why am I now making $5 million a year, and for 20 years, I made 200 grand a year? What is really happening here? And I saw that it was a combination of a number of things. First of all, I was highly organized. I mean, I was a 9 or a 10 on organization where I'm planning my day the night before and I'm time blocking my day. Well, if you're gonna be successful in life and be as successful, especially in a well, it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur, but if you're gonna be successful in life, you gotta be a 9 or 10 on organization. Just shut it down if you're not gonna accept that. I mean, got to be a 9 or 10 on organization. Then the second thing I saw was that, I had to start deep thinking twice a week. I mean, this is a habit the top entrepreneurs in the world do, but very few other people do. Just this idea of stepping back and thinking 2 times a week and understanding what's going on, uh, processing what's going on, and I have a three-step process for doing that. And then the third thing I saw that was going on that I wasn't doing in my 30s and 40s was that, uh, I had become a conduit of learning, personal growth with a system, and the personal growth was strategic relative to what I wanted to accomplish. Most people are not doing that. Um, and then the fourth thing I saw was I was highly focused on what moves the needle, an idea that I had never fully understood before. And of course, my thinking sessions were helpful in that. But, it was sort of that combination of those things, and then combined with this immense sense of control I had over my life in a way I never had before. I could do all those things. They happened automatically. All distractions fell by the wayside, and I was just playing the game of being an entrepreneur and playing the game of life at a higher level because of this control I had, coupled with the wisdom to, apply those key things into my life, being highly organized, deep thinking, being a conduit of learning and focusing on what moves the needle. And that's exactly why my income went to 5 million from $200,000 a year.
Yes. Yes. Every time I hang out with you and have conversation around this, I've been putting your framework into use daily for months now. But then I hear it again, and just the way you explained it, it just locks it in even in more depth. And I'm like, of course that works. Like that
Yeah,
is
right.
it.
Well, and I know I told you this story before, but I think it's so pertinent, and it sort of relates to what you asked me right at the start. So I met Darren Hardy about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, and I met him because I had the idea in my head, if I'm gonna spend the rest of my life on this, I wanna show this to the top expert in the world on success and see what he or she thinks about that, and I decided that Darren was the man, the arguably the top expert in the world on success. So I write a big check and Ginger goes out there to California. We spend 3 days with him. And, oh, by the way, part of this methodology, about within 2 years of implementing it, I met the woman of my dreams. Whole 'nother story. But anyway, the Ginger and I go out to California, and, uh, the moment comes to sit down with Darren, and I hand him the template, and I explain how it works and the connection to Think and Grow Rich, and he looks at it and goes, "Wow, this is pretty good." But he says, "John, people aren't gonna spend 12 minutes a day on this." And, I'm like, "Whoa, Darren, how the hell can that be?" 25x my income. Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it, and, we're applying the central concept of the top book of the world on success to people's lives. I mean, what do you mean they're not gonna spend 12 minutes a day on this? And he sorta kicks back and he goes, "John, the dirty little secret in the success and human achievement field is that most people won't do anything to impact their success because more success is merely a preference. Sure, they would like to be more successful, but it's not a necessity. It's merely a preference." And when he told me that at the time, I'm like, "Whoa, everybody wants to be more successful, and this works on everybody. It's pure science. It can't not work." And then as I processed it a little more, I saw he was exactly right, and I was wrong because I was looking at the world from my eyes thinking everybody's just like John Mitchell. Well, they're not like John Mitchell. And once I got that sort of through my thick head, uh, I saw he was so right, and I shifted my focus from thinking it was for everybody to only really showing this to the enlightened 2% where more success is a necessity. And as I evolved this, I started looking for people like through EO. You know what an EO is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an organization for entrepreneurs and to be
Mhm.
in it, you gotta be grossing $1 million a year. Well, only about 5% of them are netting $1 million a year, and so I'm like, "That's the perfect group for me," because my story is I was netting 200 grand a year for 20 years, and I took my income to multiple millions, so they're gonna love this. So I start explaining it to them, and and I start getting clients, and it was what was interesting was I would tell them, "I'm gonna give you a money back guarantee. If you give me $20,000 and I'm only taking people that are making a minimum of 200 grand a year. But if you write me a check for $20,000, I'll teach this to you in over 8 weeks. And if I can't double your income within a year, I'll give you your money back." Well, I never had to give anybody their money back, and the idea was really, let's double their income, and then we'll take them to over 1,000,000 a year. And so I took basically 2 years of my life to d teach this to approximately 10 or 11, entrepreneurs, and it basically worked every time, and some of the people I was teaching it to were already making $1 million a year. Now those people were tougher to take them to 2 million or 3 million, but I still was blessed to be able to do it. And so that's how it sort of evolved, and now now my focus really is to teach my methodology to coaches because they're congregating the 2%, and that's how I leverage me, as
Mhm.
opposed to sitting down individually with each person. But I had to teach it to those 10 people and prove with a money back guarantee that I could double their income to really have the validity that I feel like I have.
It's amazing. What has changed for you from 50 and, you know, a 200K type of annual deal to 5 million? Like, what's the, whether it's lifestyle or, I mean, obviously you're still utilizing your methodology yourself and continue to grow in that sense. What other things have changed?
Well, I think the thing that's changed is it was so great to get to the point in my life where I didn't have to work and where money had no meaning at all. And that was a great point in my life. It is a great point in my life not to have to worry about money because then you can be concerned about more important things like focused on my marriage. I mean, your significant other relationship impacts your happiness more than any other factor in your life. I also saw that helping other people, I feel so blessed for all that has happened to me that my joy in life today is helping other people. And I got something that's life-changing, and so, being able to share it is such a joy. That's
Hmm.
why I'm honored you're doing my methodology, and I'm curious on your end, so tell me the effect on you of doing this, before and after.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to put a context into this also. And so, I mean, a long, long time ago, you mentioned the organization around professional development. I'm a guy that in 2011 bought gobs amount of professional development, but it wasn't focused, and I ended up going bankrupt. There are some beautiful blessings out of that, and yet I can see it clearly now. Like, well, there was just no focus. I was
Yeah.
buying everything. I was in real estate. I was in all sorts of stuff. It was crazy. Um, But now it's honed, it's super focused. And so Sundays are my planning day. I'll map out the week, and I'll look at where I'm going to go. Like you now, I'm mapping out my day prior, and I've got my top 3, and I've got my day blocked, and I am pretty regimented to it.
Are you
Um,
using the system I gave you?
I am. I have it right here.
Cool, cool.
Yep. And the caveat I want to put out there just for the listeners, like, and I think this is also for me because when I was first introduced to you and I learned the methodology and hearing little sound bit clips of your story, I'm like, oh, it sounds so easy. And it's not always easy. And what I mean by that is in my business, um, we grossed, just over 2 with 0 profit last year. And this year we'll be up and over 3 with about 500K in profit. And then I think starting this month or next month is the beginning of a 12-month run to really near that million EBITDA. And so it's this focus, this clarity of thought, this drive, but it's also having um it's having a mindset, it's having the pull forward in order to do the hard things, in order to have the hard, difficult conversations, right? And I would say that's the same thing with my relationship. I'm in a beautiful relationship with a beautiful woman. We're gonna crest 20 years of marriage this year, and it's not always easy. But having the methodology and this clear articulation, my actions are primed. So if there is conflict, like I already know how I'm gonna react, and I'm gonna stay present. Like, the old versions of Matt that I've had in the past are no longer around. Every now and then, I'll see old cycles, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's the old cycle." And then maybe I'll go in and I'll tweak some of the visualization that I articulate every morning or, massage some components of it, and then it melts and molds away. And so it's fascinating. Um
It's really a spiritual experience, isn't it?
I agree with that.
Well, and that's what I see at a deeper level, and think about this. If 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, then your subconscious mind absolutely controls your life. And I think your audience will find this interesting. Here's how the human mind works. This is the foundational science behind this. Conscious mind sets your intention and is influenced by logic. Subconscious mind, controlling your daily actions, or 95% of them, only influenced by repetition. Well, the classic example is losing weight. Conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. Well, the reason people are failing to lose weight oftentimes is not from lack of intention, but from lack of influence in the part of their brain that's controlling their actions, their ability to exercise, what they eat. And and so the takeaway from that is that when you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life and exactly who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, and how you're going to accomplish it, and you're feeding all that in detail, you're recreating the thoughts. You're literally recreating the thoughts that are going on in your head, because at the end of the day, your success in life and enjoyment of life comes down to the thoughts that are going on in your head most of the time,
Mhm.
because you can't take an action without a thought preceding it. So when you're feeding the succinct articulation of your life to yourself, you're you're impacting the creation of your thoughts. Because you're not controlling your thoughts, because once you have a thought, it's impossible to control it. It's gone. There's no controlling it, but you can impact the creation of your thoughts. And the beauty of it, and this is what Think and Grow Rich is all about, is proactively manipulating the subconscious mind. That's what the top book in the world on success is read by, you know, you know, so many people is all about. And That's why it's so powerful, and the subconscious mind doesn't have logic to argue with the conscious mind. Conscious mind, again, is setting the intentions, and the subconscious mind is just the obedient servant to the conscious mind, and it does what you tell it to do. And again, it doesn't have logic to go, well, wait a minute, I don't know, am I going to do that? Or I'm not. No, it just does what it's told. And that's why it's so easy to manipulate it, because it doesn't have logic to argue it.
What I love about this, John, is a connection that's going on in my brain where I was recently down in your neck of the woods hanging out with Roy Williams at Wizard of Ads. And this is a zone for you. And, I'll make an intro because I just think it's so profound. And what the wizards do is exactly what you're talking about, except they're marketers. And so if we're not taking control of feeding our subconscious mind, other people have it. And they're using very creative words and emotion and repetition and frequency to guide your actions. It's fascinating. And so ultimately I'm like, yeah, we have to become our own marketer first and get really good with the repetition, the frequency, and the words that are going to move us so that everything else is secondary. We control
Right,
it first.
right. Well, I tell you something that's interesting. Since you and I first met, um, I developed an AI algorithm where it makes it super simple to apply it to a person's life, and all they have to do is they answer about 50 questions, press a button, and 10 seconds later, my template is customized to their unique life. And when I taught it to you, I didn't have that, and it was a much more difficult process, but now it's super simple, I'm really proud of that.
It's amazing, and I will double down on that because, this book that you've recently launched out here, The Missing Secret, um, it's an awesome book. I got it, I read it, I went through that AI template, and I had formulated that template prior, and started using it, but after the AI template, it even got more clear, and it's an easy lift to be able to have that and just run with it. So I think what you did there is phenomenal. You have massive resources for people that is very accessible. And I would, I appreciate it personally, but man, you've done it. It's amazing. More
Well,
people need to hear
I
about it.
thank you for saying that, and I think one of the things that I find fascinating is the success in human achievement field is a great field, and there's brilliant people in it. But there is a glaring hole in it, in my opinion, because all people are doing is affecting other people's intentions. Like, as an example, let's say you're a thought leader and you have a great strategy and you tell people, go do this or go do that. Well, again, all you're impacting is their intentions. And if people have great strategies coming out their ears. What they need is to have those great strategies show up in their thoughts and actions automatically. Because their problem in their life, candidly, is that they're making the intentions, but they can't take the actions consistently to make those intentions a reality. And nobody
Mhm.
in the success business that I see is providing an actual way of doing life. That's my niche, and that's why I'm passionate about it. Nobody else is teaching this, and so, and I see how life-changing it is and energizing it is to me that there's this glaring hole in the success business that I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I mean, so I'm trying to put a timestamp on it. I'm going to say 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. I don't think it's been quite a year yet where I've been implementing your strategies. And I mean, prior, I was very scattered. I was winging life. and
Like most
bouncing
people,
around. Yeah. I mean,
like
it's
I
so
was.
exciting. It's so exciting to hear of a new strategy, be like, yeah, that's it. And then another one comes up, you're like, that's it. And it's like, and that's shallow playing. And I use that word intently because this year I'm all about depth. And so now that I start, formulating, I think what my point is, I'm so still just new and baby to it. I can already feel it rooted. I've already seen my actions change, and I'm not even thinking about it. It's just happening, and it's just beautiful, man. The operating system that you have in structure, I think, is just real, and I'm just excited for the next year or the next year after that because the art of thinking, and this is another quick story. When I went bankrupt in 2011, I got to meet Keith Cunningham. He lives in Austin.
Oh,
And
I
I
know
went down
Keith
there.
well.
Yeah,
We've
he's gold.
collaborated on Thinking Time.
I believe it. It makes sense.
Right.
But he was the first guy, and his story of how he learned about thinking time is hilarious. But he was the first guy that brought that to me, and I struggled with it for years. I mean, I met that dude in 2011, and and I knew thinking time was important, and I would engage with it. I'd dabble with it. Occasionally I'd get like the notepad and the thinking pen and I have the area and I do it just like Keith would do it. I went down to some of his other events for planning and planner gets slaughtered. And he would force us into thinking time and I'd see the value and it's like, but I wasn't regular and consistent with it. And I think what ultimately is happening now, where I'm very regular, very consistent with it, now I'm just learning how to think even deeper, and it's like a muscle and just over practice and reps, it goes deeper and deeper. But because I'm articulating it to myself every day that I think on Wednesdays and Sundays at 5 a.m. for an hour, like it's very clear and it's a no-brainer. And so I say all that to be like, there is a progression. Like somebody might start it after 21 days, have a little bit of a rhythm, but I think from my perspective and experience, like it's only going to go deeper. It's going to keep opening up new and new levels. Would you say that you would agree with that?
Absolutely. I think your example is a perfect example where Keith teaches you a strategy, a great strategy, but you can't consistently do it because, again, he gave you the intention, but you couldn't take the actions associated with the intention until you started reading every
Mm.
day. Here's when I'm doing it. Here's why I'm doing it. Here's the power of doing it. Once you added that, suddenly that intention moves to something you're consistently doing. And
Mm.
and that's the difference.
That's a difference.
I tell you, can I share something that I told you about this before we went on the air? That's something just came in my
Yes.
head last night.
Yes, please.
So I haven't articulated this. So we'll see where this goes. But just think about this. What if I came to you or people in your audience and I said, I've got a pill that'll change your life, truly change your life, make you way more successful in your career, make you more successful with your health, give you a much better marriage. And all you got to do is take this pill. And what'll happen more specifically is that suddenly you'll be highly organized. You'll be planning your day the night before, time blocking your days. You'll also be deep thinking 2 times a week. It's something that'll just start happening. And you'll suddenly be a conduit of learning where you have the wisdom of experts coming into your head every week, and it's strategic relative to what you want to accomplish. And then fourth, you're focused only on what moves the needle. If if there was a pill like that, I'm thinking most people would take it. Well, I got that pill. The only downside is it takes 12 minutes a day to swallow it. What do you think?
I think it's it. I think you're right. And I don't know why that downside of 12 minutes a day is the the blocker for 98%.
But it is.
Yeah,
And,
it is.
again, this is the problem. You're suffering from what I suffered from for many, many years. We naturally think that everybody is like we are, and we're like, "What's wrong with people? They can't spend 12 minutes a day? What the hell is wrong with them?" Well, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just not driven. The more success is merely a preference. Well, good, good. I hope you have a good life. But boy, you give me those 2 percenters, I love them. This is
Yeah.
all this is working smarter, not harder, and it gives you an edge in life.
It's beautiful. John, for the 2 percenters that are listening, how do we find you? Where do we learn more? Where do we engage?
Okay, well, I got a special gift for your audience. I have a 9-minute video that explains the full secret of Think and Grow Rich and the science behind it, and so if you'll go to themissingsecret.org, www.themissingsecret.org, you'll see that video, and so you can download it. And as we wrap up here today, can I share one maybe final story that maybe will
Yes.
put this into perspective for your audience?
Yes, sir.
Are you a grandfather?
I'm not.
Well, I just became a grandfather,
That's amazing.
I guess 3 years ago. And so, um, I coerced my stepdaughter to name the baby after my wife, Ginger. And so, it's a big deal, and it's our first grandbaby, and so the day after this little girl was born, we go over to Hannah's house, and, of course, Matt, there's a lot of oohing and eyeing, and for some reason, they hand me the baby. Now, I've never had kids before, and so they hand me the baby, and I'm holding this precious little girl, and again, she's this perfect human being, and she's 1 day old, and all of a sudden, I start to cry, and tears are streaming down my face, and, I just realized with perfect clarity, how precious her life is and that she's gonna literally live for 100 years, and I want her to have a great life that's both enjoyable and enriching, and I see that at the end of the day, the thoughts going on in her head are gonna impact both her success and her enjoyment, and by God, I'm gonna impact her ability to control the thoughts that are going on in her head because her life is so precious. And so, I think the lesson for your audience is your life is precious. Your life is precious. And if the next 5 years are like the last 5 years, will you be satisfied with that? Well, if the answer is no, I think that you now have a way to change it. And you can create the life you desire, and it just takes 12 minutes a day.
Hmm. John, thank you so much for dripping value today. I think this is one of the more powerful conversations I've ever had on the show.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, really appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would really appreciate it if you would help us continue the momentum that we have in subscribing, sharing, and liking our show. Let's extract really cool conversations with amazing people that are out crafting amazing businesses, relationships, lifestyles. So let's grow this thing together and just know that you are appreciated.